you got to understand Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, LaFleur, Jordan Love. Look at the quarterback, Andy Reid, Mahomes, Herbert, Jim Harbaugh. Do you not think there's a coincidence to that? Jalen has Nick Sirianni. And as I said to you earlier, that coach is not good enough for that kid. You know who that guy needs? Mike Vrabel. He needs a coach that's a coach that has power, not that shit we heard yesterday. I think that was absolutely one of the most embarrassing press conferences I've ever heard a coach go through. And I ain't spinning it any other way. Let me bring my guy Tone in here.
Big Sales, how we doing, sir?
How many times did you watch that press conference?
Watched it one and a half.
Twice.
I watched it 1.5 times. I didn't make it all the way through the second time. I got tired of being lied to, so I just stopped watching it.
Okay, so a little bit of what your takeaway was, and I'm going to ask you the questions and some of the things that I took away from.
Right.
Just an overall synopsis there, Tone, of what you felt coming out of that thing.
I saw two men who were doing their best to spin a situation the best way they knew how. Specifically, Nick Sirianni, he looked like a shell of himself. He looked like somebody who lost everything and was given nothing. Howie Roseman, and
you mean like his balls were taken from him?
Yeah, pretty much. Howie Roseman, in typical Howie Roseman fashion, the spin artist, knows, doing his best to make a negative seem like a positive, doubling down on certain things he believes. It was so much that they said, but almost nothing that they said. And that's typical for the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, that's typical for those two gentlemen. Let's say that. Sooner or later, Nick Sirianni is going to have to learn sometimes less is more. And
you had 8 days for that, Tom.
And he puts his foot in his mouth so damn much. And all you got to do is just be direct. See, that's how you know he's not a good liar, because he's been asked to lie a lot in that organization. And look how he looks. He just appears like he's rambling, or like you can tell that he's not a good liar. And when you ask somebody to lie that's not a good liar, it's going to look that way. But overall, man, I just saw a team I saw two gentlemen that's doing their best to spin it. That's all I can say.
Here's Nick Sirianni. Brian Johnson is really a great coach. We just need a new direction.
All right, I'm glad you said that. Let's stay there. He's a great coach, but you let him go. So which is it, for one? But also, here's another thing, right? You fired Brian Johnson, yet all year you were screaming at the mountaintop, this is my game plan. Don't blame Brian. He's just doing what I tell him to do. Okay. So why did he get fired? Oh, because he got scapegoated, right? You chose self-preservation rather than to fight for your guy. Well, in actuality, Brian Johnson is not a Nick Sirianni guy. Howie hired Brian Johnson, and if Nick Sirianni had it his way, Kevin Patullo would have been the OC, not Brian Johnson. But Howie wanted Brian Johnson in that role. So maybe that's why Nick Sirianni didn't feel the need to fight for him, because the way he saw it, well, Brian Johnson's really not my guy. I didn't hire Brian Johnson.
Coaches look at it that way. They do.
Right. That's not his guy. So therefore, okay, easy fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, here.
Yeah.
How about this one, Nick? I got a whole bunch of these. I'm gonna do the same to Angelo at 4:30. So I'm doing this to you too here. Already. We are changing some directions in the offensive scheme. What does that mean?
In other words, that's code for Nick Sirianni's no longer in control of his offense. That's code for that. and
or
also,
his assistants.
Yeah, or his assistants, right? Whoever they here's the funny thing about it all. Whoever they bring in on the offensive side, they're going to want to bring in their guy.
Absolutely. See, when you hire, you know what, Tone? I think sometimes I tried explaining this in the first hour. When people hear a name, they just look at the name. No, when you bring in experienced coordinators,
you got to think about what comes with that.
Wide receiver coaches, they bring running back coaches in. They bring in all kinds of different passing coordinators, quarterback coaches. You're hiring their tree of coaches.
Let's just start with Vic Fangio. They brought him in. You don't think he's going to gut that Eagles defensive staff?
Absolutely. Tracy Rocker's in trouble.
Yeah. Tracy Rocker's in trouble. McDonald is in trouble. The DB coach. They're all in trouble. They're all in trouble. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if any of them stay. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
How about this one here? Nick, our offense got stale. Code for it didn't evolve.
Oh, wow. That's news to me.
An indictment on him.
It's so funny, right? Everything that he screamed at the mountaintop was his doing failed. Yet he's still in the building. You claim that it's your job to instill the culture. Your culture failed you in the end. You claim this offense is your game plan. That failed you in the end. You claim demoting Sean Desai was your idea. That failed you in the end. Every bit that he had his fingerprints on failed him in the end. Every decision he made failed in the end. How is he still in the building? He's still in the building because they want to keep up appearances. They want to appear that too. He laid down, but on top of that, even further than that, they want to keep up appearances amongst their peers. It's important for the Philadelphia Eagles because I spoke to John about this last night, and I asked him directly. I said, "Do you believe this model that they're hitching their wagon to is sustainable? Do you think this model of Nick Sirianni just being a face and not being in control of his offense or defense, do you think it's sustainable?" John McMullen flat out said, "No, it's not.
It's not."
Basically, in so many words, and I'm paraphrasing. In so many words, John McMullen said that the clock just started ticking on Nick Sirianni.
Oh yeah,
he doesn't see him. He doesn't see him past the contract at this point.
Let me continue here, Tone. And Money, let me just say this to you. Sil's just saying things that get Eagle fans pissed. These were answers they gave at the press conference. This is not made up. These are not their answers. These are their answers I wrote down.
I don't even know why you respond to everybody, man.
I know, man.
Like there are some people who clearly are just living in.
I'm answering the question. I wrote their answers down.
Right, it's a transcript. You can look it up.
I got a transcript too from it. How about this? How about the most damning thing ever asked to a coach that I've ever heard in my entire life?
I know where you're going with this. That was.
What is your job?
That was hard to watch. That was hard to watch because I don't think he knows. And that's the sense I got. I got the vibe that he doesn't even know yet. All he knows is that he's playing ball and he's still the head coach. I don't think he knows.
What's your job?
That was one of the most damning aspects of that interview. And it was so funny how the reporter worded it too, because he said,
"Was it job description? What was your job description or something like that?"
So what he said was, so if you guys are seeking new ideas on the offensive side and you guys are going to bring in another guy on the defensive side, if the offensive coordinator is going to run the offense and the defensive coordinator is going to run the defense,
something like that,
what's your role going to be? And his exact response was, "Well, I'm going to be the head coach."
So you answered it with the question.
Guess what?
The question.
But guess what? If he would have said that and stuck that landing, I would have been like, "All right, okay." But you know what he did instead? He said that, but he couldn't deal with the silence, so he had to keep talking. He's uncomfortable up there. Dude, he's uncomfortable being uncomfortable.
He is squirmish behind a mic.
You feel me? He's uncomfortable being uncomfortable.
Dude, watching those two guys up at the mic, I was like, I didn't believe a word that came out of that thing. It was like 35 minutes long, and I didn't believe one thing.
I couldn't believe
you Howie now.
Yeah. Because I think you're going where I want to go next. Go ahead,
Howie. We have a lot of young, great players on the defensive side of the football. You know, Tone, I can only name 3.
Right. I can only name a few that I really care about what happens next. And obviously Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis. I care about
Milton
those
Williams,
guys.
and Josh Sweat. So there's 4.
Right.
The rest of them,
those are 4 guys I'm sure about. Right.
Yeah.
There's a couple stragglers that I'm curious about. I'm curious to see what City Brown can become. I'm curious about that because he has a motor that I like.
Who's coaching him?
Big Fangio, apparently.
Okay.
Big Fangio, apparently. Because it ain't.
Hey, Vic will bring in a DB coach that will shake that ass up back there.
Yeah.
See, his assistants, Tone, are gonna be the Vic Fangio name. Everyone's like, "Oh, he runs a 34." You know, that's not what that guy's bringing. That guy's bringing quality coaches to coach your young players up.
And besides, let's be honest. In this day and age, no one's running a 4-3 or a 3-4 straight up. Most of the time, you're seeing nickel out there.
You're nickel 69.5% of the time. You're a nickel.
Right.
I mean, okay. Here, how about this one, Howie? I have a lot of belief in Kobe Dean. He's a great player.
How do you know that? How does he know that? What did he see from Kobe Dean to signify to him that he's a great player? Right? I would have had more respect if he said, yeah, obviously we didn't get as much on the linebacker position that we would have liked. Kobe, we gotta get him healthy. And once he gets healthy, he'll have an opportunity to prove that he belongs on the field. I would appreciate if he spoke like that. It's like he speaks about them as if they're his children, and he's trying to sell them to a college recruiter.
They are his. He picked them.
It's so fucking annoying.
I know. But Tone, know this.
Why is it so hard to just be firm with people?
Tone, but I want you to know this. When NFL players are in a locker room and you see the depth chart and you're playing, I'm going to put something out there to you. Milton Williams privately to his girlfriend or his wife, I don't know if he's married or what have you, he goes home at night and you know what he says? That fucker Jordan Davis is starting over me and he shouldn't. And the only reason he is because he was the 13th pick in the draft. It's the only reason because he's Howie's guy that he picked him, even though he was too, but he's the higher pick. Trust me, that's what players think and say when you're playing players that don't deserve the opportunity to start over you. Milton Williams should have started the back half after the Buffalo game. He should have started every game moving on.
Yeah, I agree. When I think about, just getting back to that linebacker position, Kobe Dean has to stay healthy first and foremost. He can't show me or tell me nothing if he's not on the field. I don't care what you think he is, just how you drafted him. He has to be healthy to prove something. And also, I asked people this earlier today. Does Howie Roseman not only does he have too much faith in Kobe Dean, but is he overestimating his commitment to the linebacker position? And my answer is yes.
No. I got the next one for you. Here.
He truly thinks.
Wait, Zach Cunningham had a great year.
Listen, Zach Cunningham. Okay.
He called Kobe Dean a great talent and says that Zach Cunningham. Dude, that's telling you right there.
Cunningham had an okay.
To address that linebacker position.
Cunningham had an okay year.
Dude, they don't think this is a talent issue.
I don't see how they can't. That's why, when I watch all of this, right, I ask myself, okay, what's their end game here with Nick Sirianni? What are they truly expecting him to? What's their expectations out of him, right? Because here's the thing. Nick Sirianni, he achieved a lot early. 3 straight years in the playoffs, made it to a Super Bowl, but obviously had a major setback in year 3. Okay, things happen, but it's how it happened. It's how it went down, right? The 7-game skid, basically losing the locker room, the hires and the fires and the demotions, and it was just catastrophic. And now he gets less power. He's no longer in control of his offense, or obviously not in control of the defense. So what's he doing here? How you keep him in the building because you clearly want to exercise some level of stability and signify strength. Okay. So are you looking at Nick Sirianni as a head coach that still requires grooming? Is that why you're keeping him here? And you want him to somehow grow into this coach that you expect him to be?
Are you asking
what's
a
your
rhetorical
vision?
question?
I'm just trying to figure out what's their vision for him.
Yeah, you know it.
What's their vision? Let's be honest. Like, we always talk about what's the vision for the player. What's your vision for this coach? Because evidently he's not living up to expectations to the point where you
get along.
How far does that get you?
To a hot seat with a 667 win percentage.
Because I firmly believe he's on the fast track to losing his
job.
He's
on the Doug Peterson hot seat.
I don't know. Okay.
You're getting frustrated, Tone.
How do you know?
Because you know why? See, I think what's really happened is that the onion peel has been pulled back here a little bit on everybody and how these people actually operate. And you know what's funny? How about what I told you about the quality of how a guy answers his questions is always going to be indicative of how he uses his assets and what his equity is in the building. How he didn't use the 2017 Super Bowl win until the middle of the interview, until the very end, when someone went, "Hey, we know we can do it because we've done it before." And he went to that card, and I knew right then and there that's what's going to always give him the equity. See, Nick doesn't have that equity. Okay, Nick's the only guy in the building that has that equity.
He's the only one that can pull that card. You know what I mean?
Right. Nick can't pull that card. Howie can survive 1-6. Nick can't. Okay, let me throw this at you here. Here's Howie asked the question. It was about Desai. That was Nick's call to fire Desai.
As soon as he said,
"Oh wait, let me get the offense got stale." Nick fired Desai at 10-2, elevated him with Patricia, and then Nick's comment after that was, "Yeah, you can second guess things. That falls on me." Hey, dude, I'm sick of those kind of responses.
Yo, look. For one.
By the way, this is a transcript.
They're lying. You know
Really?
what's so funny? You know what I thought was funny? The funniest part about it was the fact that he had the nerve to bring up Nick Sirianni giving up play calling as if that was his decision too.
Oh God.
You know what I mean? It's like he's trying to to dull every conspiracy. And when you come out and say, yeah, Nick came, Nick came to us and he had his concerns and we backed him on it. And just how we backed him on his decision to give up play calling to Shane. It's like these slick ways to try to dull conspiracy. We know damn well, in my humble opinion, we know damn well he didn't give up play calling willingly. You advised him to do so. We know damn well he didn't fire Sean Desai. You advised him to do so. That's my honest opinion.
Let me go off on an off ramp before I get back to the transcript here. What do you think the impact that Jim Harbaugh has on Justin Herbert?
Oh, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. He's gonna he should actually get quality coaching. He should actually get quality coaching from this point forward. Jim Harbaugh, he wherever he goes, winning typically follows. So hopefully ownership, actually I put it this way, by ownership bringing in Harbaugh and him taking the job, on some level, ownership decided to stop playing.
Yep.
Ownership decided to stop playing.
Can I tell you what they did, Tone? Because I covered that team for 4 years.
Do
you know what they did? They eliminated Howie Roseman's position. That's the only way they were going to get Jim in the building.
Because didn't they fire their GM in midseason as well?
He's now the GM. Tom's been on our program. He's a friend of mine. He's now the GM of the Raiders.
Right. They haven't replaced that position yet.
And you said something the other day. Tom is really good at look at Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Herbert. I mean, he knows
he's good at he's good in free agency as well.
He's good in free agency, and he's really good in the draft. The Spanos family got in the way because you know what they did? They gave a lot of power to the general manager. A.J. Smith back in the day was the guy that fired Marty Schottenheimer. Marty was 14-2. Marty wanted to keep Drew Brees and trade Phillip Rivers. He wanted Brees was a Pro Bowler in San Diego.
But people forget
that organization had to make a pivot. And this is what you and I talked about. The biggest thing they did, they have an identity crisis in Los Angeles as it is. They needed to get, and the only way you were going to attract Jim Harbaugh
is by firing,
or even Belichick.
It's by firing your GM as well.
By firing people
with authority
that you had to answer to.
They already had their heart set on him. Exactly. They knew right when they fired their GM, when they made that decision, they knew who they wanted. They knew.
Oh, absolutely. They did everything in their power
to make that job as sexy as possible
for Harbaugh.
Yep. They basically prepared the throne and made it real nice and shiny for him.
But they gave Herbert $50 million. See, Tone, this is what I give the Spanos family's clowns. They follow. Get this. They follow me on Twitter. The Chargers follow my Twitter page, believe it or not, because I've had a good relationship with them. But the Spanos family just completely, Dean, they get in the way, but they pivoted and said, we just paid a guy $50 million.
We have to change.
The best coach we can.
Right. We can't afford.
Go out, pay a guy $50 million. They give him the worst coaches they could possibly. No. They give him the worst experienced coaches they could possibly find.
Hubris. Pride, ego.
Nick Sirianni is Brandon Staley 2.0.
See, here's the difference, right? With the what is it, the Spanos? Is that what you said, the Spanos family? Here's the difference. At some point, they realized, yeah, we're not football people.
That's right.
That's the difference.
They did that.
That's the difference.
I know that family. That they had a come to Jesus conversation going.
Where does their money come from? If you don't mind me asking. If you don't know, what kind of
they're from Sacramento. They're from Sacramento. They're real estate people. Okay. And they bought the team from Gene Klein back in the day. And get this, they bought the team for $54 million. The team's worth right now $1.9 billion. So I mean, their investment has gone through the roof. However, moving to LA was a whole big thing, moving out of San Diego to Los Angeles, but they don't pay any rent. They don't have any concessions. Kroenke gets everything. So they're kind of like the only team in the league without a home stadium with really not a home fan base. They started in LA. You know what? Hey, you know why they're named the Chargers?
No, I actually don't.
Okay. Well, because back in the day, Barron Hilton owned the Chargers, and he called them and had the very first charge card for the hotels. And that charge card, the Hilton charge card that you had, and he called them the Chargers.
That's
and
hilarious.
So it started in Los Angeles.
That's hilarious. Really, I mean, it's a pretty cool name, though. But
yeah, it is. And they started in LA and then moved, but they had a come to Jesus conversation, man. That is so un-Spanos-like to land a guy like Jim Harbaugh.
And I respect it. I respect people who aren't afraid to deviate from their original process, especially when they feel like they've hit a wall. I don't like people who double down when you.
Look where they went from, Tone. Brandon Staley to Jim Harbaugh.
That's like going from a Fiat to a Ferrari.
Oh, right. Or a Yugo to a Ferrari. I mean, dude, you're kidding me. When I saw that last night, people started blowing my phone up. And they go, because I know Jim real well. He coached at University of San Diego.
Right.
And he used a politician for that San Diego State job. He wanted that thing so bad. He was tied into the Spanoses then. And the Spanoses were thinking about hiring him then before Stanford. And I'm like, man, they got Jim Harbaugh. Holy shit, did they make a complete course change. But see, when I look at some of the comments that are being made out of this press conference, there's no course change, Tone.
I don't feel that. The only course, if anything, right?
Yeah, they took power away.
Right. All we really got from that is they took power away, and they're going to go in a different direction from a coordinator perspective. I'm curious to know your perspective on bringing a guy like Vic Fangio in. We haven't had a guy on defense calling plays, that experience since what?
Jim Schwartz.
Jim Johnson, Jim Schwartz?
Jim Schwartz.
Jim Schwartz. Because how many years has Jim Schwartz been in the NFL? How many years?
Long time. He was a head coach with the Lions for a bit.
Right. I remember those years. That's how I found out about him. The Lions head coach job.
Here's my only concern. Again, Vic Fangio coming in and being the coordinator.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what's your thoughts on just him and just the experience? What's your thoughts on him?
How much are they going to let him run the defense?
And that's my question, because in my opinion, you don't bring a guy in like that, or he doesn't take that kind of job unless you're going to allow him to do his thing.
I think the Eagles are going to get busted for tampering here.
Oh yeah. It's funny. I was talking to Rob about that, and and I was talking to John about it too. Isn't that something that they would typically do right away? I'm curious because
what happened
so far they seem to be playing it cool so far.
You know what? I think they'll probably be like a 6th or 7th rounder. This is not going to be, because again, if the Dolphins were thinking about, which they were thinking about possibly replacing him, and there was a conversation,
because couldn't they block him?
I heard this. Get this. I heard Vic hated South Florida. I heard he hated it. He didn't want to live there.
But couldn't they block him though?
What's that?
Couldn't they block him?
No, completely. What they did was they parted ways, and they wanted to see the landscape, because they wanted to bring a different guy in, because he hated living there.
Right.
His family hated living down there. It's not Armando Salguero told me this. Okay. Is that Vic complained all the time about living in South Florida. He totally hated the community there, and he wanted to come back closer to home. And so this is what I feel. I think the Eagles this time made sure that nothing went sideways.
Regardless,
they had a deal on the table with his agent. Okay. And as soon as they parted ways, but he was still under contract when they were negotiating. Whether you were going to release him or not is not the point. The point is he was under contract when they were negotiating. That's tampering. That's the same kind of scenario that played out with Jonathan Gannon. He was negotiating with Arizona, and they caught Arizona, and Arizona and the Eagles had to do some switching up when it came to the draft picks, because there was some negotiations going on during the time when he was still under contract. That is tampering. Now, is it going to be a major violation, like a 3rd rounder? I don't think so, because probably the Dolphins and Stephen Ross probably wanted to get out from that deal. Right. So it'll probably be like a 6th or 7th rounder, something like that.
And that's what I was trying to figure out, right? Like, I mean, because obviously it was a setup, but also they were paying him a lot of money too.
Oh, highest paid DC in the league.
And for them to part ways, I naturally assumed that they could care less what happened after that, because again, they allowed.
If I get an extra pick, Tone, I'm gonna file for it.
Okay,
like Arizona did.
So that's how it works.
The Eagles did for Arizona.
Right. Okay, so that's how it works. The team has to file, and then the league has to investigate.
And then what they do is both teams will have their company press release that both did. Remember how we was reading from that press release to Mike Florio?
Right.
And they went back and forth, and it was a prepared statement. So that I don't think this is going to be as egregious, but I do think that he was under contract, because as soon as he parted ways, the next day he had a contract in front of him.
Right. I mean, that's not normal.
No, it's not normal. Look at how many coordinators that you're going through now on the offensive side. You knew who you were going to get.
And it's so funny. It's so funny we talk about this, because
he wanted to come here.
Right. And here's the thing, right? You said something interesting, how we looked at it, like how they looked at it like this. We're going to get our guy no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what they felt. If we got to deal with a tampering charge, so be it. We're going to get the DC we want. And that's kind of who they've been wanting over the past few years. They've just been trying to find these off-brand versions. Now they got the real McCoy in. They get, they're actually going to start getting the water from the well.
I didn't want Vic.
Yeah, help me understand what's their infatuation with Vic Fangio, in your opinion.
Vic doesn't have anything to do with, and doesn't really give a shit about personnel. He doesn't ask for players. He puts a scheme together and says, I need the type of player here, here, here. And it's going to be up to Howie to find that guy to plug him in. So there's certain coaches that will do this. I want Dallas Turner from Alabama, or I want, like Nick Caserio saying, I'm trading up because I love Will Anderson, and I see an intangible in that player. Vic, there's some coordinators that the old school guys, they believe in their scheme so much Just give me the type of player that looks like that, and we'll go with that.
So they believe in archetypes, not actual.
And that's kind of the coordinators that they like in Philly, is the guys that look like that.
Because financially, it's easier to
cheaper to balance your cap too.
Cheaper,
right? If I can get a guy that looks like Michael Parsons, I don't have to really pay Michael Parsons 30, but I get a guy like Hassan Reddick that looks like him.
Right.
I mean, to me, Hassan Reddick is a off version of Michael Parsons. I get the same production out of him. You know, maybe one guy does something better. He covers the passes better, but Hassan rushes the passer better. So you look at it and you got a trade-off and you go, yeah, but I'm paying 15 here. Cowboys are going to pay 30. So you see what I'm saying, Tone? You look at it like, does that guy look like that guy?
Right.
It's cheaper.
It is cheaper. You're
and that's how they've operated on defense.
And in theory, it's not terrible. In theory, it's not terrible. But where they've, in my opinion, where they've gone wrong.
But you have to change that out every 2 years, though.
Right. And in my opinion, where they go wrong is the fact that because look, every position in this, look, whenever you're balancing the cap, you got to place values on positions. You have to. It's just the way it works. But where the Eagles go wrong is they've taken it too far with how they value the linebacker position. They've taken it too far with how they value safety. They put all their eggs in a defensive line basket, and I get it, but maybe you should invest a teeny bit more, a few extra million in the linebacker position. Maybe. I don't know.
Your cap, you got a $50 million quarterback now.
Right.
Still, the beautiful thing about Roseman is those cap hits. I don't really care about the $50 million. I care about the cap hits.
Right.
And he did a brilliant job on that. That's the only reason I want him in the building.
Right. The cap hits.
Because I don't think he's bad at pro personnel. I think he's good at scouring rosters and finding guys who are undervalued. And I think he's great at putting contracts together and jumping ahead of the gun and getting guys at hometown discounts. I think he's good at that. But when it comes to drafting, I think he's brutal. I think they do a right thing when it comes to the lines. They've made a commitment in that since the owner owned the team since Norman Braman. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that they do, and it's so predictable. It's just predictable. By the way, before I go on here, I'm going to get to Jalen here in a minute and what Nick and Howie said about him. Players can be overrated. Is a 667 win percentage and 3 playoff appearances in a row. And when you watch a guy go 1-6 down the line this last year, is Nick Sirianni overrated as a coach?
Oh, it's entirely possible that Nick Sirianni is overrated. I mean, look, if you kind of laid it out pretty perfectly. If we can call players overrated,
like, do you think Michael Parsons is overrated? Like, you can run at him, Tony. He's not very physical.
You know, I'll put it to you this way, right? Because I've never put Michael Parsons in the class of me personally. I've never put him in the class of a Myles Garrett or a TJ Watt. I've never have. I feel like I've always had him properly rated, just how I view it. So I can understand if someone's saying he is overrated when you see him in big games like that Green Bay game and he didn't get a single sack or a quarterback hit. Right? That's how is that possible? You're supposed to be a game wrecker. You're supposed to be a game wrecker. You're supposed to be the linchpin on that defensive side. They go through you. And neither you or DeMarcus Lawrence were able to register a sack on Jordan Love on that average Green Bay offensive line, a young offensive line at that, maybe a veteran sprinkled here and there. But for the most part, that should have been food for you guys. So I think Michael Parsons, in a way, is overrated in terms of his overall impact on the game, especially when it matters most. You know what I mean? He has limitations.
Really good talent.
I think he's a tremendous talent. But at the end of the day, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, you got to show up in those games.
I'll tell you what, I see Reddick more show up in games than I do Parsons showing up in games. I do. I mean, look, he had a rough one down the back stretches, that entire defense, because they were not using him correctly, I think.
Yeah.
But I would say
how do you drop Hassan Reddick back 7 to 10 times? It doesn't make any sense.
Practice. Let me go here with you. So this question was asked 3 different ways. Hurts and Brian Johnson asked him about someone asked the question, and I heard it, and he goes, hey, the involvement, did you go to Jalen and tell Jalen about Brian Johnson being replaced, and Nick went into this diatribe that was like this soliloquy where, hey, we made all these decisions, and it was just like blah, blah, blah noise. And then he was asked again the question about Brian Johnson. How did Jalen feel? You'll have to ask him. So it was almost like they tried to avoid the question as much as possible. Did Jalen have a problem? Did Jalen have a problem with Brian Johnson being fired, or did he not have a problem? Or do the Eagles not want to answer that question?
Look, what
do you think? Do you think Jalen? I find it hard that Jalen has a friend for a life, and Jalen's going to blame Brian Johnson for all that shit that went on. When we hear Nick go, the offense got stale. He did not evolve the offense. It was his offense. It was the same players from a year ago. And then Jalen's going to sit there and go, you blame Brian for that? That's my friend. I think Jalen had a problem with it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen looked at that situation kind of sideways, like,
I think he did now.
You know what I mean? But
I came away from that press conference thinking that Jalen has an ass with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen had questions about that decision.
But he's not going to say it publicly.
Now, I will say this, though. Jalen also strikes me as the kind of guy that, hey, it is what it is. Business is business. He strikes me that kind of guy.
He's going to be pissed, but he's not going to go public and show his hand.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen, behind the scenes was like, damn, this wasn't even Brian.
You blamed him for all this shit?
Wow. Like,
this is my fault and your fault, Nick. It's not just Brian's fault. And then when asked
him saying that,
publicly, hey, man, this is really a tough call here, especially when you're losing really quality people. And then you have, what's his name, going, Brian Johnson's a great coach. So Brian Johnson's a great coach, but you fired him and you didn't consult Jalen, and Jalen had an ass with it, and he's a great I just found that to be a convoluted answer. And the way that they went around the business on making sure that they didn't answer that in the right way.
Like, for me, I don't know. Maybe I just know how to answer certain questions, and I don't and I don't really get flustered. But if you ask me, what went into the whole Brian Johnson firing, my response simply would be, well, look, Brian's is a good man. During his time here, we had some great moments of success. But overall, we felt it was time to go in a different direction. I'm sure Brian's going to land on his feet. Like, it's very easy to get through certain.
Don't sound like you're making sense, because that guy doesn't.
I'm telling you, man. Like, I listen to the reporters' questions, because I think sometimes it's hard to hear them, but like, I hear their questions and I'm like, okay, I know how.
You learn a lot from the question,
right? And I'm like, okay, I know how I answer that. And
remember this: when you're asking a question, you're looking for the response and the human response, not just the words they're saying.
Exactly.
And their mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick has awful mannerisms, because when he doesn't want to answer, watch this. Here's his profile. Okay, here's a profile that he has. The closest source: men have 23, women have 24 of them. They have body language that they have. Mm-hmm. And his is this: when he doesn't like a question, he goes on those soliloquies.
Mm-hmm.
And he over-explains.
Whenever you catch him, he starts over-explaining.
Because you know what he's doing? He's gathering his thoughts.
That's exactly
while he's coming up with the bullshit that here's a great, always remember this, time when you ask a question and someone says, hey, so what do you make of this? And the guy answers the question and he goes, well, when you look at this team, that is a bridge for you to gather yourself,
right,
while you're thinking about what the Ravens are or the Niners are, to give you a chance to gather.
Right. There's an art to expressing yourself.
Yes.
And you have to, so you use certain words as a bridge so you can gather your thoughts. Like, if you ask me a question,
they're actually called pantomimes.
Right. You ask me a question, I say, it's funny you asked that question.
Yes.
Then that's exactly what that is.
It helps you gather your thought.
It helps you gather your thoughts.
But
I do it all the time.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. How about this one here? Okay, so if I told you that a coach had a 670 win percentage and has been to the playoffs 3 times, has a quarterback who finished second in the MVP voting, last year, 2 coaches in the last 2 years that have gone on to be head football coaches, and Nick's saying this, I have to reprove myself, and you won 11 games this year. Dude,
it tells you everything, and it tells you everything about how they. It tells you everything about how they view who's responsible for what. because based off everything you said, Nick Sirianni should be okay, right? He should be okay. But guess what? The fact of the matter is they don't see him as the one responsible for their recent success. They don't. They clearly see him as somebody that requires a bit more attention. They see him as they have to see him as a liability in a way. And that's why they're bringing all these different people in to try to make sure their investment in him looks legit. But the fact of the matter is, Nick Sirianni has no more power, and I have a hard time seeing the bright side of this relationship. I have a hard time.
Howie was asked the question, "Why'd you bring Nick back?" That was asked
That was the most direct way you guys.
That was a direct question, and it was a very subtly low-asked question in that building.
Very low brow, low key.
Here's Howie. We're bringing Nick back because we have confidence in him.
Hey.
Or do you have confidence in that he'll do what he's told?
I think it's the latter.
I'm sorry, I had to ask that.
But listen, here's the thing, though, right? You see how simple and concise that answer was?
Yeah.
Even if you agree or disagree or you have questions about it. Hey, are we bringing him back because we have confidence in him? Okay, all right. I can respect the direct answer. You know what I'm saying? I can respect it, even if I don't agree with it, even if I think you're lying. Hey, it was concise, it was to the point. You said what you said, and all I can do is take it. You know what I'm saying?
How about this one? Howie was asked the question and said that the talent on the team, he said, the cupboard is not bare by far.
Yeah, he's wrong. He's wrong.
Well, you know what he's telling you?
He's basically telling you
coaching.
He's basically telling you he didn't feel they had personnel issues.
Yeah.
That's basically what he's saying.
He's telling you they had no personnel issues, that the cupboard's full.
What is that, on offense only?
What are you trying to do? Dissect it here a little bit here? I mean, because to me, I heard you guys talking. Well, offense is okay. No, man, this is about a 53-man roster.
No, you're
saying about half the team, because that was your problem this year, was only talking about half the team. The rest of the team was what let you down. That 53-man roster, you're only as strong as the weakest link on. Jimmy told me this, and get this, Tone. This is how he built teams. Now, no salary cap.
Right.
It's different. But he said, I wasn't trying to replace the top end of my roster. I was trying to replace the bottom 10% of my roster every day, because I'm only going to be as strong as the weakest link on my roster. If the bottom 53 guy is the best 53rd guy in the league, my roster's better than yours.
Do you believe that's when we're wrong with the Eagles this year? The fact that they kind of shortchanged themselves on the back end. They became top heavy.
They're top heavy.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, look at where the money is. How about this one? All position coaches right now this is to your point. All position coaches are being evaluated. We're going through that right now. You know what that means? Nick has no power whatsoever. These coordinators are bringing their coaches in.
Of course. That's why I'm curious to know which direction they go in when it comes to
what his job is, right?
I'm curious to know which direction they're going with the OC, because do you think they're more likely to go experienced, or they're more likely to go young, bright, and bushy-tailed? Like, how do you think they're going to approach this? Because they've already gone experience on these.
Tailor-made OC, and what I mean by that is
an OC who's capable of molding
an offense around Jalen, and get this. Here's what I don't want. I don't want an offensive coordinator set in his ways.
Right. Okay.
And sometimes that comes with experience, but then you sacrifice experienced OCs with experienced position coaches. So you've got to have a trade-off here. You want some experience, Tone, but what you also want is guys got to be able to look, every quarterback in the league's different.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen, Allen, and Lamar I'll use. You got to tailor-make offenses completely different than you do for Joe Burrow and Mahomes and for
Herbert.
The offense in Los Angeles for Justin Herbert couldn't work in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's two different completely two different skill sets.
You got a guy that knows that dynamic.
Right.
that's able to put that kind of stuff together. Now, you know what that means? Different position coaches, less control from the front office. You're not going to have say in analytics. Dude, these coordinators are not going to sit there and listen to Anna. You're basically going back to this 2017 model.
So let me ask you,
Doug and Jim Schwartz and Frank.
So that's interesting because do you think you know how we said the only way the Eagles can kind of get out of the situations is if they have a course change or pivot a little bit? Do you think that's partially what they're doing without they're partially doing that without completely severing ties? Yes, exactly. They're basically doing that, but it's going to be at Nick's expense.
They're taking more control of the team by allowing their hires of coordinators to come in. And I told you yesterday.
But here's the thing, right? Isn't that sad?
The more you close the gap on Nick and his last year, Nick had this much to say. Now he has this much to say.
Isn't that sad though that you're willing to give more autonomy to Vic Fangio and the OC you're bringing in than your own head coach? You trust them to turn it around more so than the guy that's in the building.
And Hurts.
It's not a good look.
There's 3 dudes they're counting on to turn this around. The 2 coordinators and Hurts.
Mm-hmm. Because they clearly don't have faith in Sirianni's ability to turn it around, or bring in the people necessary to do so.
You know why they like him? They like him because they have to like him. If that thing was 6-11, he'd be out.
Yeah.
The only thing that saved him is that he did what they told him to do during the year. Think about that. Because if he had really made that call, dude, how many people do this, Tone? Let me put Matt Patricia in. Defense gets worse. Let me fire the coordinator 10-2. Let me have my quarterback I just paid $50 million regress.
Mm-hmm.
Let me have an offense who everyone had career numbers, and yet we were 1-6 down the stretch. You had a defense that fell completely apart. The only reason you keep that job is because somebody was pulling the strings.
In any other situation, though, all those things that we talked about are grounds to get fired.
Right, but you know what's not? These are all your guys' call.
So what happens? So going forward, so if he has less power going forward, like is everything going to be their call from that point forward? You get where I'm going? Like, okay, if he has less power now, how is will everything go through these guys going forward? It's just how. So how
nothing's changed.
What is he being held accountable for then?
He's not.
So
the record. Record.
Okay, there we go. All right, see, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so
the record.
The only thing he's been held accountable for is the win-loss column.
Right.
And if that's not matching up, he's out the door.
He's out the door because he has no other job.
Got it. Okay. All right. That's
what
I'm
thinking about that. The only reason he kept the job is because they won 11 games. He didn't keep the job because of decision making.
He didn't keep the job because of the quarterback development. He didn't keep the job because of playoff wins.
Think about this. Seriously, the only thing that was a positive in Sirianni's 2023 year
was the win-loss column.
Was the one-loss record. Outside of that, every decision they made was wrong.
Because every time Nick was criticized or anything was asked about Nick, Howie kept resorting back to, 3 playoff appearances in a row, a 60% plus win percentage or whatever. Like, he kept doubling down on these metrics to prove Nick Sirianni's value. But other than that, I don't think he indicated anything outside of those metrics what his value is.
And don't forget, I know what I'm doing because
I'm Howie Roseman.
17 Super Bowl. Hey, drop that nugget on you there.
Oh, all right, my God, man.
I'm going to get Angelo Cataldi on here in a minute.
Yes, sir.
Great
it's always fun.
Hey, man, I'm glad you saw that. And by the way, man, no disrespect to anybody, but I'm not going to say anything because you're here. But I will say this: I don't give a shit if those guys were humbled.
It's funny. Real quick, it's funny you say that because
hey, I don't care how you feeling, kid.
No, like he looked like I don't care either, by the way. But let's be honest. Nick looked like somebody took his basketball.
Oh no, he looked like he had a red fanny
and put it on the top shelf.
Hey, your pop took the switch out, took it off the tree, and took it off the willow. And he came over and drop your pants there. Nick looks like he's got a couple swats across the backside there, man. And he was biting on a bone. Hey, sorry, I've been there a little bit.
Oh,
okay,
man.
I'm just saying, man. I mean, hey,
Lord
Sister
mercy.
Judith Marjorie Fish. She used to paddle me in Catholic High. And okay, she'd have this Marjorie Fish, she had these gigantic arms. She came from like a prison, and she was a nun.
What?
She used to hollow out her paddle, and she used to hollow it out, and all you would hear is
doesn't that make it go faster?
Like beads hitting you.
Hollowing it out. Doesn't that make it go faster? Like it catches the air.
Go faster right through the air, man. And then hit your ass, man. Oh, boy, I tell you what, it shook you like you were bit by bees. Yeah. All right, Tone, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, my friend.
Sir. Yes, sir.
You got it. All right. We are going to have our friend Angelo Cataldi join us. Please hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.